You're live, Tony.
There it goes. All right. Is it on YouTube? I don't see it. Is there? Oh, the delay. There's always a delay.
Should
All
be
right.
good now.
Welcome. TJ's late, like normal. He's always got something that comes up right about 6:15.
We should probably change the time of the show, but that's for a later
just
date.
Don't tell him. So today, Will is joining us, our newest member of the crew. I'm trying to get to my my notes here. Sorry. Will Jenkins, founder, co-founder, and what, VP of operations, right?
Yeah, so co-founder, VP of strategic partnerships at Mola. I give a quick intro, kind of rundown, and glad to be here with y'all. So I got my freight career started out at Coyote. I was a year and a half out of college. My first job out of college, I used to work with Kimberly-Clark Professional. So I sold Kleenex and paper towels. It was super exciting. It wasn't that exciting, but it was a really, really good job, great company, a lot of fun. So I transitioned from there, started at Coyote. I was at Coyote for about 3 years, got my feet wet in transportation, spent my first 2 years on the carrier side of the business. And then I spent a year managing customer-facing sales reps. So most of my career has been B2B sales, and so it translated very well. Helped lead a group there. Transitioned from that role to be a director with Transport America after they purchased Optimal Freight in Ravenswood. So I worked there for like 5 or 6 months, and then left there to start Mola. So I had my old connections from my Coyote days, and we ended up getting back together. So y'all know Andrew and our other co-founder, Stephen Mathis. We worked at Coyote together as well. And Matt Vogert, who's a friend of Silver's, kind of knew him through Andrew, and that we got started July of 17. And, the rest is the crazy madness we've been at for the last 3.5 years. So that's a little bit about my story, but background in just about every topic that we'll touch on today. So glad to be here.
Awesome, man. We're glad to have you. Looks like you got a lot of background that I wasn't even aware of all of that. Kimberly-Clark, holy moly, that would have been a great time to be in that business about this time last year.
Yeah,
it's no more shortage.
Totally.
Awesome. So yeah, I got to talk to Silver when we were in Vegas, and it was cool. Like, his persona is way different in person than the image that I know of him, I guess, from just online presence. But he was really down to earth, really cool. It was good to hang out and talk to him, and likewise with you. We're riding dune buggies and stuff. That was a lot of fun. So the topic today is building carrier relationships from each point of view. Like sales, that's Mike. You're all over building carrier relationships. Will, you're talking about it from the broker standpoint. How do you build a carrier relationship? I can speak to that on my end, because my goal is to literally eliminate you guys directly if I can.
But why is that? Let me hit on that. Why is that?
So in essence, I mean, it's not, I say that kind of tongue in cheek, but it's not really to eliminate. It's to, when I source a carrier, back when I had freight at an outbound place where it wasn't.
I love how you always try. I love how you get so many messages still, and
I still, everybody
there.
I put a post
he does
out
not do freight.
That somehow took off, and it, I used a carrier for this one stupid load, and I got a good relationship, and it worked out really well, and everything was covered with one phone call in about 20 minutes, and it put a fire out, no big deal. But it kind of went viral. Everybody's commenting and viewing and everything, and it's funny. I have local freight on my fleet. That's it. Once in a blue moon, there's a load here and there, and that's it. So the blue moon was last week, and we got it covered. It was no big deal. But I try and source carriers from previous relationships. Like, I know people, and I know, again, it's the relationship thing that matters, the trust. I don't care. So many people shop price, and we have to. From my point of view, I have a budget. I have a target. I have a goal. We're supposed to reduce year-over-year overtime. We're supposed to reduce year-over-year freight spend. We're supposed to do all of these things while still growing in the market that's going the other way, right? The prices are going up, and so we get to fail and fail forward. So the failing forward is knowing that you're not going to hit the target, but hitting the next best target. Having that goal to, if you can't hit option A, you're going to hit option B and hit a home run on that one. So that's the description there, failing forward. But so my goal is to find partner carriers when I had freight to actual locations that fit with them, that fit with us, and not necessarily the cheapest price. I mean, price is a factor, but it's not the factor. It's one of several. I had carriers that would come in and, I had my own little rate sheet spreadsheet thing that I operated off of. Everybody had a bid. You can change your bid whenever you want. I'll update it as soon as my email confirmation came back that I got your rate. Anything that we give you from that point forward is at the new rate. It's all good, super easy, self-handled by me. It was very, very manual and just a spreadsheet. But I had carriers that would come in with these crazy low price just to get me to call them, and then they never have a truck. So all I did was learn to never call them. I'm sure you guys have the same issues in your areas, but that's where I learned a long time ago that these relationships are what matters. I found out guys that would help me out on a Saturday when I'm at the store and I had to make a phone call. Like I tell people all the time, back then, my best guy was a TQL guy, and he's awesome. And he took care of me every time I ever needed anything. He hooked me up, and I always got a truck. I always got a fair price, and they always got a lot of business. Now, we used a bunch of other ones too, but he was great. He was my go-to. I had his cell phone. He'd call me on Saturday. Hey man, I took care of this for you. It's covered. Sometimes I had to get approval for the price, but I mean, that's what you get when you're asking for a Saturday night load. So yeah, that's how I want to build a relationship with the carrier directly as the shipper, so that I'm paying the best possible price. Because if I know I can get that truck somewhere else through a broker, I know it's a cheaper rate out there, and then I have to seek that out. But again, we don't try and hurt that relationship either. I'm never going to steal a carrier out of a broker, because you just don't do that. But I guess some people do. But
Yeah.
like stealing drivers, you just don't recruit your neighbor.
I think it's just, I mean, we talk, I think a lot of, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, everybody talks a lot about trust and obviously everyone has a budget, and not to go down the rabbit hole of, a rate isn't the only thing you have to look at, right? To drive costs out. Cause I mean, you said something that kind of stuck out to me. You said, we have a budget every year and we have to hit it year over year. And from what I understood, it's just from like a rate. And to me, that just seems like like an uphill battle, right? Like, I think there comes a point in time where, you get so low at rates, like, what do you do? Right. And at that point, it's like, yeah, exactly. And it's like, I think a relationship, it like, put aside the fact of like, hey, they're getting your shipment from point A to point B. Yes, that's important. But it comes to just being like upfront, right? I always preach it about like, I want to be a resource, not just, and actually solve some challenges, what you're currently doing. And let's just stick with the rates. But it's like, I also just I don't want to do business with someone and just to be added on to, more challenges that they're going to have. So I think as a salesperson, my thought has always been, hey, I'm not the one. So say truckload, right? I'm not the one who's actually going out and knows all the pricing and all that, but I'll bring that team on. And once we get everybody in the room from, the customer side and my side, we'll have a meeting of the minds and say, hey, what's an accurate price for, all this $5 million of transportation? What do we think? When the market's high, when the market's low, let's have a happy medium. Does it meet your budget? If it does, great. If it's profitable on both ends, great. If it doesn't, we part ways. And obviously I know that's not for everyone, but I think that setting a budget or setting standards up front and getting carriers on board as well, right? It's like, hey, listen, you're going to get consistent freight. I need to make sure that when the market's up and when the market's down, these are the rates we're going to get. And you're going to have trucks for this customer. Like, let them decide. Let the carrier decide, hey, do you want this freight? It's longer term. And, again, it's worked out well for me, right? It doesn't always work, but like at least having that conversation with everybody so everyone's on board is a easier way or a faster way to, expedite the process of having to, 6 months down the road, you're having to go to this carrier, the market's up, market's down. No, if we're eating costs when the market's high or low, that's on us, and vice versa. So I think it just expedites the process.
Yeah. If you're going to talk about rates, you need to talk about capacity. Guys that are shippers, anybody out there, if you're talking about rates with your brokers or with your carriers, you need to also talk about capacity, because everybody wants to talk about rates. But I had a guy who was with a big name flatbed carrier, literally like 50 miles away. They had a terminal, and they were in the Midwest, a great well-known carrier, but every time I called them and offered them something, they went through and bid all of my lanes. Every time I offered them something, I get turned down. Nope, that's not in our sweet spot. That we want this perfect load right here. Those aren't the loads we have. I mean, I gave you the rates, I gave you the lanes to bid, and every time I offered them a load, they just wouldn't take it because it wasn't in their sweet spot.
I think the people you build a relationship with, Tony, and this is just from doing it for multiple different companies, is everybody, to me, it's a no-brainer, right? Give me your rates, or I have to get invoices, but that's a whole, put that aside. But it's like a lot of people I see is like, I got friends that are just your typical broker, right? Looking for loads and never get any type of invoicing or anything like that. I think it's like just being upfront, right? A lot of people are afraid, and I get it. A lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to be undercut. Just give me your best price. Well, from having a close team that goes out and tries to find a truck without knowing the rate, you're really just shooting blind, right? It gives us as a 3PL more ammo in our gun to go out and be like, hey, this is what we know we have to get it at this. Now we have some room to figure out what we can get it for, right? If that's the price you want to pay, say it. Like, I think it's the more open everybody is. I mean, let's face it, would you go to Verizon? Say you had Sprint, would you go to Verizon and not show them your Sprint bill? They don't know what I mean? It's like, what do you need? There's things in that.
Whenever you're negotiating that, when you go in there, you tell them, hey, I'm paying this for this. And then suddenly it's this big secret in freight. Like, I can't tell you what we're paying.
I mean, I just never, usually those ones are, and again, people that preach they want relationships, but won't be at least open to that. Because what do you have to lose, right? Either we move a shipment, or we do business together, or we don't. Either way, at least you'll know, like, both of us will know if we're in a good spot or not, right? So I've tried to always think of things from a logical standpoint, in a business standpoint, and in a time standpoint, right? I'm mindful of everyone's time.
The carrier wants routine, consistent freight. The shipper wants routine, consistent pricing and availability. I mean, there's a way to make that work by communicating. Will, how do you source that?
Yeah, so there's a couple different things that I would touch on here. From a carrier development standpoint, I think as a broker, it's important to consistently be looking for relationships, regardless of if you need them or not, right? So I think about our business day one. We're calling carriers and understanding and profiling their lanes for freight we don't have, because a year from then, we're going to get an RFP that we quoted, and we're going to have carriers for it. And if we weren't sourcing 365 days before, we're not going to be able to actually onboard that customer successfully. So as a broker, you have to constantly be looking for new opportunities, regardless of where those trucks are, because there is always a customer that has a lane that a carrier wants. You just don't know if that carrier is in your network until you essentially have fished in that pond long enough to find it. But y'all were talking about pricing and transparency and stuff like that. I look at it completely different. So I know there are shippers that count every penny and every dime because they have to be extremely cost conscious. And I know that there are shippers that would rather send it to the person that they know covers it, and they don't think too much about the rate. And as long as you're not taking advantage of them, they're going to continue to work with you. And you need to understand where you want to play in that, right? There are customers that look at freight strictly as a commodity, and that's okay. If you need to build your network and have enough freight to feed your carriers, you have to have that freight. There are tons and tons of customers like that, and that's how you build your carrier network. Like, the margin percentages are going to be significantly cheaper, and they couldn't care less if I picked it up or if another broker picked it up. It doesn't matter, right? If they can save 30, 40 bucks a shipment, they're going to do it. If I can go find the people that actually care about that relationship piece and are going to allow me to have their business. We've got lanes that we've had since September of 2017. It's the same loads every week, and they just won't give them to anyone else. And I know they could probably get a little bit cheaper of a rate, but they know that we're going to do it, and they don't have to worry about it, and we can use the same partners. So in my opinion, I think you just need to know what battle you're stepping into, right? If I'm stepping into a large enterprise shipper and I know they're going to cost cut, I need to understand that's where I'm going to play. And it's probably less of a relationship until I really get into them and understand that business, and more of a cost play. I just do nothing for them off the bat unless I can come in and be cost competitive. And it's part of the game.
Right.
Knowing your target audience or your target customer.
Correct. Just 100% important. If you're like shooting at the wrong target and you've got the wrong prop, you're not going to win.
Mike, you posted something on that yesterday. You were saying you got to provide more value than just a couple of cents. You can't just be the $50 cheaper guy.
Well, that's the thing is, it's like, don't get mad. So you only know what you know, right? And it's, don't get mad. We were talking about this before we went live, but don't get mad that someone is rate shopping you when that's all you provide, right? I think it's more or less like
Right.
people put it in their head that it's like, oh, everybody rate shops. I'm a living proof that for the past 8 years, that's not true, right? It's like, it's just educating them. And and again, that's coming back to, if it's not your sale and you are, hey, more power to you. If that's how you do business, that's great. I don't have to agree with it, but flip the switch if you want to take it to the next level of, we talk about relationships. Don't even talk like, to Will's point about, the carriers that he calls that he might not even need them, right? He's just building that rapport. That's exactly what I do as far as building rapport. It's more or less, I'm calling different departments in a company, not even asking for their business, seeing if they have any like challenges. Maybe they know about it, maybe they don't. If I can solve them, putting that in my thing and then reaching out, right? It's like, it's just building a case of how do you help them?
I had a 25-minute call today with one of my reps to a shipper talking to the wrong person, developing a relationship so she will refer us in, because we can't get this guy to respond to emails. And she was very receptive. And she was like, yeah, absolutely. I'll send an email on your behalf. I'm like, fantastic. But you got to understand how to play the game. It's just part of
it. But I mean, again, it's still mind blowing. And I posted that video yesterday, Tony. It's just mind blowing to me. Like, everybody knows what they need to do, right? I think it comes down to just doing it, right? I mean, it seems like in this industry, we keep going in circles. At least, I sat back and this industry got like really popular, I guess, like throughout the pandemic, and because social media, and it just seems like most people are spinning themselves in circles, not really even talking to the customers, at least on social media platforms, but more or less complaining at each other. And that's a huge red flag too. It's like, that's not really control. You can't control that, but it's like, why instead of doing that, maybe reaching out to your customers, asking what their wants and needs are versus, bitching at each other. It's just scary, right? It's like going to your friend's house that the parents are always bitching at each other. It's like, I don't want to work with that. Right. It's like the same thing. It's like,
how do you feel that out though? I mean, how do you pick that carrier partner how do you find out that they're going to be in it for the long haul and they're not just here until rates go back up and then they're gone? Like, they're going to take the next.
I mean, dude, it's with anything, right? It's like, I could say, it's like, how do I, dating, right? How do you know someone's not going to just cheat on you? It's like, you got to have a little bit of faith, right? It's like, but their actions lead up to it. But it's like, at some point, you got to say, you just got to make a decision, right? It's like, is this person the right person? And if not, I'll learn my lesson. But it's like, you can't constantly, in my head, I'm not going to constantly always think is like everybody. I'm not going to be a pessimistic person and just be like, everybody's a shitty person. No, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to be upfront with what I'm looking to do, right? So make sure that, my goals align, or my goals and initiatives align with not just my customers, but the carriers I'm using, and make sure that everybody's talking to each other on the same page, and then move forward. And if I get burned, that's my fault. It's not even really my fault, but then I learned my lesson. But as long as I have been direct, held everybody accountable, there's nothing more I could have done on that end, right? It's like, I did what I had to do. Everybody said they were on board, and the carrier or the shipper, they went south, right? It happens, but you got to make a decision.
Do you think it's something to lay out up front? Like, here's the list of expectations. Here's the standards. Here's
absolutely.
I mean, it's almost like you're hiring somebody. If you're onboarding a carrier, if you're a broker or in sales, when you're whatever, the same that I'm doing when I'm vetting a carrier to see if they're a match for something that I have to move. You have to do that, leap of faith, step out and trust somebody, and then build the relationship. It has to start somewhere, but at some point you need to list the expectations. You need to list, what are these expectations and how do I measure myself? It's not some carrier score sheet, right? I mean, that's just a bunch of data points. Those are great and they're very useful and beneficial. I'm not saying you shouldn't use them, but who's going to pick up the phone when you have an emergency on a Saturday?
I think
right on.
Laying out those expectations is extremely important, but trial by fire is a real thing. You're not going to know until the rubber hits the road and stuff starts to really move and things go haywire. One of my favorite things in building carrier relationships, which is going to sound wacky, is that, like, I hope a load goes sideways so I can see how they handle it, because it's not always going to be perfect. And the best carrier relationships I've ever developed have been with carriers where like the first or second load I ran with them, like the driver was detained forever and he had to lay over for a day, and like they were extremely normal about it and like did not freak out and wanted to handle it in a, you know, very professional manner. And that yielded a fantastic relationship because every day and every low is not going to be perfect. And you need to understand how to work with ebbs and flows. But like those carrier partners that work that way are phenomenal. I want to put you on every shipment I can because you work with me in a partnership manner. And the other piece is like, I think one of the missing parts in brokerage is reps understanding how carriers make money and understanding how they turn their trucks, because it is inconsequential for a broker whether or not that truck gets where it's supposed to be for their next load, because that's not making them revenue, right? Like for the broker, it doesn't really help them unless they're picking up another load for that broker, right? But if you don't understand that at the base level for that carrier and understand how they make their money, how much money they need to make on that truck, or what they promise that driver, you can't really help them and you can't get them to really work with you consistently. But if you crack through that, that carrier is going to be so loyal to you because they know that you're in this together. It's significantly more of a partnership than it is transactional. But like, you really need to know how to play the game to get in that way.
Pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered is something I've always said, and it's like you just nailed it. It's like it even stems from, you know, let's go to just even sales. It's like salespeople a lot of times don't even know their comp plan, right? And like how they even get paid. It's like how does like that's another topic, but it's like even I think finance is a huge thing that needs to be taught in this industry, or just some basic general accounting things. But it's like, how does your customer make money? How does a carrier? You have to know how everybody is profitable. And if you don't, there's no issue. There's no shame in saying, hey, how do you make money? Right? Because that's a question that I always get. It's like, well, how do you went this low? How do you make money? I said, I make residual commission. And that's why you know what I mean? It's like, I know you got to have a reason, and you got to know why you're getting paid this way and why you're doing things the way you do, just like everybody else. So it's like, that's a huge thing. I could go off on that, but yeah, accounting and finance is something that needs to be, that should be just like a regular course when a new salesperson, carrier salesperson, anybody comes on board.
I agree.
Sorry, say that again, Will. I didn't hear you. I was talking over you.
No, I was just saying I agree. I think if people understood that better, they'd be able to deliver better results to a shipper or to a carrier, right? Because you understand, I mean, at the end of the day, they have to find a way to turn a profit so that their business stays open. So like, how do you help them do that? And if you can provide that value, you're significantly more important to them.
Absolutely. You know. I have a question as a guy who used to be a carrier and, you know, independent owner operator for myself, but as a shipper, this doesn't really pertain to me, but I have a question. Let's say I'm Tony's Trucking and I've got my one truck and I'm using you as a broker. I'm totally putting you on the spot, and it's not intended to put you there. I'm sorry, Will. I want you to ask you this question. How valuable would it be for you to chase me around? Like, you get me a load from Chicago to Boise.
Yep.
Are you shopping loads in Boise for me?
Yeah. So I spent my first 2 years of my career in carrier sales. And to add some context, this was in 2014. So Coyote was 8 years old. And so when you think about the development of that business, that means that a lot of the carriers that most of us know are already working with a rep and they have a developed relationship, right? So as a brand new rep with no carrier relationships and no experience, most of what I have to be able to call on are owner operators or small fleets, right? So I'm calling small mom and pop truck drivers that like we don't work with or don't have a strong load history, and figuring out ways to keep that truck turning. Because if I can run that driver Monday through Friday, get them back home on the weekend, or run them for 2 weeks straight and then get them back home when it needs to be home, that driver is so loyal, it provides significantly better rates. And if you want to think about how a broker actually makes money and how they actually make their network profitable, and something that is different than what, you know, the next broker next door is doing, it's really at that granular level where I can find a relationship that's not going anywhere. I would have owner ops that would let me run them and they wouldn't take loads from anybody else, because I'd say, hey, how much money do you need to make? I need to make X. Okay, when do you need to be home? Got it. Here, I would just send rate cards. Here are your loads. And they'd say, perfect, that works, right? And if they needed to make more money, I found a way to make them more money. But that is so valuable, because I might be able to take, I'll just use you as a shipper. I might run Atlanta to Boise. I load that driver on the one shitty Boise, Idaho load we have that I can't cover because it's like maybe in a tough market, and that driver takes it for a significantly better price for me because that's my guy. So if we were to load a random carrier, we get crushed on it. But I average out this guy's miles and say, hey, I'm going to make you 280 a mile all week, and he goes, great.
So, that's all. I was wondering if anybody ever really did that for a carrier. I mean, I'm not the guy, but
you just nailed it, though. I liked what you said, Will. Sorry, you said if it needs to be at a certain price, I got to find a way to get it to that price, and it's something that I like. That's such a key. Whether that's even in carrier, whether it's fine, you just got to figure it out, right? There's ways even from an operational standpoint, right? But figure out, and if you can't.
Tony?
What?
Tony, what were you asking?
I was asking if, as a broker and I was an owner operator, if he would follow me around. If he gives me a load from Chicago to Boise, and I'm going to be there in 2 days, is he shopping for me a load out of Boise so that I can just call him and stay? I was just curious. I've never really been on the broker side of things, and
you'll find that a lot too with like single owner apps. So a guy that's just got his own truck, he'll find a good broker, a guy to take care of him. And so Will, to your point on that, I remember finding what kind of opened my mind to that was coming from, when I originally started on the dispatch side going into brokerage. So I remember having to talk to guys and having those guys in the fleet that just were my dudes. Like, man, we had like a Ford load that was going wrong, and like, God, it was a shit rate, or I had to recover a trailer. Like, they'd do it for me because they knew I'd take care of them on the back end. Like, I could get that stuff done. And so when I came to the brokerage side, I try to put that in their head that, like, you take care of these guys and you let them know and you follow through on stuff, they'll take care of you. Little things, I mean, sometimes you got to get approval, but it's like, hey, listen, man, like, I know how you're operate, like, know their operation, right? Know, like, whether they're company drivers, owner operators, whatever it is, but like, hey, I know that you got to do this for me, or a little extra here or there. And I know, your company, how it works or whatever, I'm going to send you an EFS for $50, or I'm going to send you, a gift card or whatever, a Venmo, something, that you can kind of take care of these guys too. And that goes, $50 sometimes these guys is just, it goes a long, long way. Right. And that could be the difference between losing 500.
Absolutely. But let's say you bounce them all over the place, like Will was talking about. Is that like, are you okay with losing $1 on the crappy load that you can never find somebody on because you're making him a bunch of money on the other 3?
1,000%. It's a network effect, right? So like if that Boise, Idaho outbound load sits and we have to use a random carrier that now doesn't run with us, because they don't have any load history with us, right? But I would like straight up tell my carriers, look, this is the worst load I have left today, and I can pay you X, but I'm going to pay you Y on the next load. And they're like, I got you. Or you'd even get to the point where you'd have guys where a load could be advertised and posted for more. And I'm like, look, this is posted for X, but like, I can't pay you that. Like, this is the rate. And they're like, all right, I got you. Because that they know you're going to take care of them, but you have to like really dig into their business for them to be vulnerable enough to let you actually, play that game.
So what I'm hearing, even on your end, it's like the relationship is the key to the business, right?
Yep. Yeah. And having something on the back end, having something on the back end is even more key. So like, even it's so crazy how you can relate brokerage with dispatch so much. I mean, like at least the way we dispatch our owner apps, because like, when you've got a tough load that like a customer sends over and says you're dedicated on, you got to get somebody to run it. They know the market's up. You got to get them to do it. I talked to somebody. I talked to him. He said he didn't really like it. And I'm like, here's what you do. You get like, you go on the back end, right? You see where they're delivering. You find another, huge load, right? We got a huge brokerage that we got brokerage right here we're attached to that we work with. Like, put like 3 or 4 loads together and then call it, right? And then you're like, hey, listen, I know this load, man, it sucks. I got stuck with it, man. It's just something we got to do. We got to take care of the customer or whatever. But you get there, as soon as you get there, you drop trailer hook, run over here. I got you 250 a mile here. And then after that, you get there, you get through the house, and then come back here. You're at, $3,000 for the week. That's how you're selling to an owner app, just like how Will would sell, how we sell, on a broker site. Same thing. It's like, hey, shitty load, man, but hey, listen, I got this coming right out of that area. Get you right back. Put your total money at this. You take care of me, I'll take care of you, type thing.
Cool.
Cool.
Well,
you don't do that. You just say, hey, I got a private fleet, and
I'm
just curious. I'm picking brains.
It's a big part of the game. I mean, sometimes I get frustrated with the emphasis that people place on technology in our industry, and the reason is technology should be enabling your people to do more and do more work more efficiently. But those relationships are what locks everything in underneath that. And I couldn't match trucks fast enough if I didn't have the relationships to know where the trucks were anyway. So it doesn't matter how good my technology is if I don't have the relationships to begin with. And I just think about, I primarily am selling to shippers, like large shippers now in my day to day. But I've got carriers that I worked with for 7 years that if I texted them right now I needed a truck somewhere, that truck would show up.
Yep.
Like, that's my dude.
Yep. Yeah, it is that. It's I always talk about committed capacity, right? There's capacity and there's committed capacity. Like, if you go and like you want to sell something different, like don't sell it. You got 50,000 carriers. That's not capacity. Like all you did was go through. I mean, I know how it works. I mean, we got sales reps, young guys who come just setting up carriers right and left, right, just to get them in our system, and that's part of it. But because you want those resources, but committed capacity, right? Like sell that. Like, hey, listen, I know where you're at and what you're shipping out of, the location that you're shipping out of, and where you're at. I know for a fact my network there is very strong. I've got 3 or 4 carriers I already use on X freight. This many. I mean, you go down a number. I got 7 guys I know that are close to your location that we can help you out with, that can get through there every single day, that have already talked to and are committed to helping you out here or something. Like that's committed capacity, not just saying, hey, I've got 10,000 carriers that I can do this. And that's overall part of Mike, it's funny. Mike, you always talk about this, but somebody was talking the other day and I said, it's just the fact that their idea of transportation, like saving money on transportation that's not where it's at. They want to say they want to work on everything else and save money everywhere else. But the transportation, they just chalk up as, hey, this is our budget. This is what it is. We're going to pay this. Well, there's so many different ways to save money there. You could be that resource to help them.
I think that, yeah. I want to go back to the point where you said that, like, I agree, Will, about like technology. So many people put technology that's the thing is I'm all for technology, right? But it's like, it's got to be specific. But even before that, it's like a CRM, right? The CRM is great for sales, right? For customer service, checking everything, right? But if you don't use it, right, or if you don't know how to use it, it's pointless. And that goes back to the point of that's the same thing with, honestly, you don't know how many people companies I walk into that have a TMS that don't even have it integrated, or it doesn't have any type of business rules. It's literally just it's utilized for, it's basically just I guess an easier way to rate shop, but it's like that. It goes back to learning the process, right? That's like, again, not to get all like deep, but that's with anything in life, right? Learn the process first, and then start adding tools and gadgets that are going to be specific to what's going to benefit or impact your company. A TMS just doesn't automatically benefit your company just by getting a TMS. In fact, it probably hurts you. I'll just say that. I mean, that's my opinion. But if you don't know what you actually need, again, or you have those relationships, it's like you need to have everything in line first, build the strategy out first, and then start implementing things that that could automate some stuff. Or to Will's point, free up some. It's supposed to free up people's time so they can actually do things that are going to impact the company's bottom line significantly, right? But until then, you got to figure it out first.
I see it as like it almost exemplifies the need for technology. Almost exemplifies how important it is to not utilize it. It's kind of weird, but I always tell people like we use technology to be efficient in order to free up more time to build those relationships, right? To be able to, because I can do this quicker, I can get a hold of you faster. I can respond quicker. I can talk to you more. I can get you on the phone. I have time to, dig in and strategize, whatever it is, that personal, that relationship, that one-on-one type of thing, because I've got everything else. It fills gaps, right? Like what it used to be before. Like, hey, I'll give you a call in a minute, but I got to print this BOL off and sign it. And then I'll get on the DOS system and fax it over to you. And then an hour later, then all of a sudden you can get on a call.
I'm so glad I missed that era of transportation, man, because I could not be printing BOLs and faxing them. My head would explode. I missed that, and I'm good. I don't need it,
bro.
That is why.
Isn't it crazy though that some people still be doing it?
Not like stop playing. Do not ask me to fax anything. I cannot help you.
No.
Like,
as soon as they say, I'm like, listen, I'm not even like trying to be offensive, but I don't fax. So.
It's like someone not wanting to get on like ACH. I'm just like, wait, you want to pay? You wait.
No,
something's wrong with this.
Yeah, it's like putting an NCAA pool together. Somebody gives you a check. Like, dude, that's not going to work. We don't do that. What is this?
Guys, I
Dude,
started. I switched jobs here last fall, and I came in there, and They set me up, and they get me in this office. I got my laptop. I get everything set up, and I'm like, all right, hey, where's the phone? They're like, we don't have phones. I was like, I was kind of scared for a minute. Now I love it. I love it. Go ahead, try and call me, brokers. I got nothing.
Call me, brokers. Call me, bro.
Tony, were you ever that? Tony, were you ever the guy that left that voicemail or would leave that like answering machine saying like, "Hey, we're all set with carriers"?
No, but I've heard those. Those are awesome.
I always thought those they are. It's like you already and those were like off topic, but I just like laugh at those. I feel like those are the ones that are like mostly extremely nice, right? Because nobody. 9 times out of 10 people see that or hear that. They're like, oh my God, they're good. Dude, I was reading some guys, I'm going off, but I was reading some logistics manager's profile and he goes, I am the guy. I got a screenshot. He goes, I am the guy you need to talk to. No, I do not make the decision, but I am the guy you need to talk to. I was like, dude, that is what, like, that's like, I'm into that. Like, if someone could just be that straight up, it's like, yo, you have to talk to me. I'm not negotiating it, but you talk to me first. That's what more people.
I love brokers.
The higher level contact, I have his cell phone, and his voicemail literally is like, "This is blah blah blah." You know, leave a message. He said, if you're calling in regards to acquiring any of my freight, I just gonna let you know now. I don't even check my voicemails, so don't waste your time. And that's what it is. Like he's just straight up like, "Hey, don't leave a voicemail because I'm not gonna check it." You know, and I mean, so basically, I guess I'm assuming that I think about like, what if his mom calls or his family calls or whatever, but like nobody leaves voicemails anymore, but they're just like, oh, we don't leave him voicemails because he's worried about brokers calling him.
Because they're relentless. I love brokers and they are absolutely necessary. And the good ones are great and they're so worth their money. But man, dude, there's 800,000 too many of them in my opinion.
That's the part, and Will could test this too. I mean, you think about, you know, how brokerage has developed, and some of these bigger companies, you know, like TQL and Lancer, some of them, you know, with satellite offices branched out, all this stuff, but like it went from like a, you know, a third party person that was helping a shipper or helping, you know, a couple customers to now, you've got your 3PLs, you got your writers and things like that, but you've also got these huge brokerages now that are just bringing kids off the street. And they're just saying, sit here and make 100 dials a day. They don't know what they're calling about even sometimes. I mean, they didn't even know what they'd say if they got them on the phone a lot of times. And you're dealing with that. You're navigating that. Like, how do you tell them, like, listen, I'm not one of those. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's a tough part. But then you also take those guys and they've got 2 months of experience after 100 calls and you set them in there and start moving freight, dealing with carriers, right? Pissing carriers off because they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing or no bad. And so that's where the reputation comes from. But that's why they're so hounding, because it's like, this is what your job is. 100 calls a day, touch the same guy, and you know they're not. And then to be honest with you, they don't want to dig in too much, so they're going to call the same people every day, right? I mean, that's
on leadership, but I think more or less, I think everybody control what you can control, right? And I had this conversation with Jake Dunlop, and we were talking about, you know, how do you sell in in an industry that's such a commodity? How do you cut through the noise, right? And I brought up a thing. You know, I worked for Worldwide Express for 5 years. I was in a territory that I had literally companies tell me to get the hell out of there. They hate us. And I was able to sell them. And it was more or less, no one gives a shit about your company, right? It's the rep they care about, right? It's like, what solution are you bringing? So and I think let's focus on what we can bring, right? It's us that if we have a cool company or an awesome company with, you know, sweet gadgets and whatnot, that's a bonus. But essentially it's on you to be different, right? To move differently. And I think that the more, if we're going to go on this rant about like newer reps, you know, it's like, one, they should have good training or leadership, right, for their role. And two, it's like, don't stop getting into the weeds with these battles with brokers, shippers, and just start focusing on, you know, your customers' wants and needs, because your customer no one wants to deal with the person that's like literally in the mix of bitching at each other, right? Go focus on what your customer wants, and that's strictly it, and be better than the next, I would say.
I'm talking reality. I mean, the reality of the situation.
It is reality, dude.
The reality of the situation is that's what it is. That's what Tony was talking about. That's why he gets hounded all the time. That's why there's bad experiences. It comes down to leadership, right? It comes down to training. and there isn't as much, especially when you go to these satellite offices, right? Where it could become a whole different culture. You kind of lose your culture too, because you got an office over here that isn't. Now, one thing I always say when I talk about Landstar TQL is that it does come down to the rep. You can find I know some Landstar reps, TQL reps that are fucking amazing, right? It's just now finding those, right? And so that's what I'm saying when it comes to, the inundation of calls that Tony gets and some of the bad reputation of it. But these are all conversations that, like you said, Mike, earlier, this is all, came to light, especially in the COVID era, with social media. Yes, it feels like it's over, but it's conversations that are fairly new to, like, yes, you may have talked here, but like to the public, I mean, that's something people have wanted to express, something to get out there. And it's, I think it's something that it always boils down to what you said. It always ends up coming back to the management, the leadership, and the structure of it.
I have a lot. This is off topic. I have a lot of thoughts about it because I spent most of my life selling things to people, and most of my career before transportation was selling things to people that just definitely didn't want them. So you got to get really good at like cutting to the chase and building those relationships. And so, like, I love that people call you all day. Why? Because it means I need to be better at my job if I want to win your business, right? I have to actually be better than everyone else. And in my opinion, most people in this industry are extremely mediocre. They're very surface people. They don't understand how to translate what you care about and why that is relevant to our business, or they don't have the freight mix that will allow them to even learn what's relevant to you, right? So if you've never worked with a Walmart style shipper, you got no right calling on a shipper like that because you can't relate to what they need. And when they grill you about it, you're going to be sitting there like just a deer in headlights because you don't know how to translate what you do into what they do, right? So when I hear, or like when I get an opportunity to talk to a shipper and they're like, why are you different as 18,000 burgers? I'm like, let's play ball, because the rest of these guys are bums. Like, they don't understand how to talk about what they do. And they spend this time blowing you up, providing zero value. Like, why am I calling you? What's the point, right? And so that is like the entire. It makes me so excited because it's a fact.
Yep,
it's why I always, you got me all jacked up because it's like you said it. I'll just follow it. Everybody's mediocre. There's very few people that I. There's a ton of money to be made too. It's like that's why I'm so. I gotta stop because I'm so like jacked up about like getting newer people into this industry, but they just like. If I could just scream it to the world, it's like, seriously pick who you like the company. Yes, but I would more or less pick who your leader is and make sure that they got their shit on point, because you do not. I have friends that like you don't want to be. I just wouldn't want to be the person having to like literally smile and dial and go to bed every night worried about if I'm going to win these loads, right? You don't have to live life like that. And and
you get the confidence or the resources, like he said, even and the experience to where you don't have to worry about it. You feel like you can handle. I mean, like if I had to go out right now, I know I could go out and start over. Like, you know what I mean? Like you could get that point. But I think, Will, what you were talking about too is that ability to with all the newer reps especially. But God damn it, my mind just went blank. I had a great point too. I was leading up to it, but go ahead. So, God damn it, that was a good one.
What I was saying is that we're talking about building relationships on this topic. Like, that's the topic of tonight, right? Whether it's shippers or brokers or carriers or whatever. And so, if you're going to find a way to help elevate someone's business or elevate what they do, whether it be a manager to a rep or a sales rep to a shipper or a sales rep to a carrier, the only way you're going to be able to do that is if you foster a strong relationship that allows them to be open and honest and vulnerable about their business. Because if you never get there, you're never going to understand the underlying challenges that person actually has. If it's a carrier, right, do they want to grow? Are they trying to buy more trucks? Well, what if I never asked, right? Or maybe I don't know what their true backhaul lanes or where the terminals are, or where the drivers need to be, because I haven't built that relationship. Or if I'm selling into a shipper, right, if I don't ask the right questions to know why in the world would you ever consider onboarding a new brokerage partner, or what's going on in your network right now, I'm never going to be able to develop a relationship that provides value to you. So I think a lot of it comes down to like stripping your ego and saying, like, how do I get to know this person so I can help them with what they actually need? Because it might be starkly different than what it is I have in my head about what this person needs. It could be completely different than that, but I have to spend the time to get to know.
The point, okay, I remember what point. I knew it was good. So, like right now, what I've noticed, and I kind of mentioned it the other day. I don't know why I brain fart there, but I mentioned it the other day. In a market like right now, and I'm seeing it, every day. It's fairly easy to be successful. I mean, I know there's people that are not experienced. I see it every day. that have almost zero experience that are put in charge of an account, say, right, that are taking in freight, that are making big bonus checks. And they come in at the right time, of course, right? But it's how do you that's where we talk leadership, because what made us separate ourselves and learn how to make those relationships and learn how to get gritty and find the different avenues and the angles and make us better than people is because we were doing that in 2019, right? 2015, 16, when it was hard. It wasn't easy. I mean, it was like, how do you find? I mean, I was coming up with crazy ideas to land accounts, like ways to get to them. Now it's you pick up the phone, right? The value you bring is just the fact that you have more trucks because capacity's down. When that goes away and capacity's fine, that's not value anymore. Like, what are you doing now? What are you doing right now in order to stick around when they start pruning, brokers and carriers? Those are the relationships. That's why the relationships matter so much, because, when they start pruning them here, when they start getting their rates down and the market starts coming down, yes, you may have been able to cover loads for them or whatever, but how much value did you bring? They're gonna cut it down to X amount. And like what Will said, that's where your ability to separate yourself from everybody just calling and just covering loads and doing this will give you long-term success. Not just when things are good.
Yeah, Nick was hitting that point in the comments. He said, be creative and proactive. I like to say that is be intentional. Do stuff on purpose. Stop reacting. Be the guy that they go to because they don't have a choice, because you're being intentional about it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so I've told people, just the reps I'm training here, some of the dispatch, some of the brokerage reps, like working with them on it's easy right now. I mean, you're just getting, whether it's roll tender freight or not, I mean, you're just getting a lot. I mean, like, you're making a bonus check, you don't, but like, it's not going to be like this forever. You got to keep your pipeline full, right? That's why, you still want to be doing sales. You want to build relationships, find other divisions within that company, find other plants, find other, resources, find other connections, find a Mike Nemi, find a Will, find a Tony, find somebody that when shit goes down and shit hits the fan, you've got avenues, right? You've got relationships.
You make a really good point, which I think is relevant for what we're in right now. So capacity is hard to come by. Mm-hmm. And a lot of things are happening transactionally because it's what needs to be done to service the freight. It is what it is. You got to do what you got to do to get through it, right? I would be willing to bet that there are a lot of people that are missing out on the extra 60 or 60 seconds or 2-3 minute phone calls, understanding what a carrier needs in the midst of getting a load covered, that are going to be hurt when the market softens because they're used to doing things so transactionally and they know nothing about understanding how to profile that carrier and get them what they need. And that's going to hamper their business so much when things slow down, because it's not always like this. And like, that is part of the game, the ebbs and flows. So being able to like teach people that you got to slow down even when things are hectic is extremely important.
Even like the customer side, it gets transactional, right? Because they don't necessarily they lean on you mainly because they're getting hammered in every meeting they're in about rates. They're getting hammered in every meeting they're in about carriers, about capacity. So that's all that's on their mind. So that's the value you bring. But if that's the only value you bring when that goes down, then what? Right? I mean, you just got to see that bigger picture, right? And then that goes to the broker, right? Now they got that pressure. Then they go to the carrier, transactional, get it done, move on, right? Well, hey, here's a value you could bring when shit goes down. Have dedicated carriers build around their freight. It's a lot harder to get rid of somebody when you are talking to them every day about the name, Bill that goes in there every day, and Bob who lives down the street who runs over and runs your freight for you every day because you built that network. Right now, when they start pruning people, there's your value, right? It's a little different.
Goes back to whatever the carrier, customer, what are their wants and needs, because each one of them are, I think it's safe to say, different. And then if you can tailor something, or if you can be that person or the company that can give them what they want and need, and essentially vice versa, that's all that matters.
And that's something that, like, I was dealing with somebody today that was talking about how I just can't get through. She says like your rate's the same as or I have somebody with the same rate, but they haven't got a load this week, so I'm going to give it to them. Or they'll say like well,
why not just ask why? Why not just ask why? Like, it's just simple. Right. It's like dating. It's like
she was
dating,
complaining about it, right? She was like, and then she'd say like, I got your rate or whatever. I'm going to wait for some other carriers to send rates in, and then I'll let you know. Like, and she's like, how do I get by? I said, if you've tried everything, first get some strategies, build the relationship, talk to her. You got to be the go-to person. Pick up the phone and call her and say, listen, this is my job. Like, my goal right now is to be your go-to person. What do I have to do? I'm just straight up asking you. Like, this is my career. I really value my customers. You're one of few that I have. I want to bring value. I want to be, your core care, your go-to. What do I got to do? Like, what is it that you really need? What can I do for you to get to that point? What do I got to do to be the go-to? Just have that straight up conversation. I mean, I'm like, if you've tried everything to that point, call them and just straight up ask them. I mean, maybe there's something that they're struggling with that they're not even, you're trying, like Will said, you're trying something totally different and they're not struggling with that. So that's why it's not working.
Maybe sometimes you're just not the one either.
Or yeah, there's that too. Yeah. Sometimes, yeah, you got to accept that.
But
You got to know when you got to know when to not push a square peg through a round hole as well.
Yeah. Don't set up a call either. Just call them.
Yeah.
Put them on the spot. Yep. You get a little more truth that way.
Here's my Calendly. Here's my Calendly link. I mean,
Oh my God. You
But,
can still
all right,
get those
cool.
emails. This is cool, man. Check this out. The other day, I got an email. It's like the other day, an old friend of mine wanted to go to lunch. We just couldn't match up our schedules. Like nothing worked for him ever. So I just sent him my calendar, and he was able to click on it and set up a time, and it worked out perfect. So here's this product. Here's the link. Just click my calendar and set up a time. I'm like, wow, great story, man. That's crazy, man.
Did you really do that? Was that a joke?
No, that was an email I got. Literally, an email I got.
great story and a great joke.
Oh my wait, what?
Yes.
It was both. Yeah, it's
Oh, man.
crazy. That's if they don't. That's if they call me by my real name. But yeah, I think carrier relationships. I talked about. I put a post out yesterday too, just from the carrier side. I'd say, I dabble in both, but mainly, focus on our assets and our trucks. But understand the fleet, understand their operation. Understand the difference between a company driver and owner operator. Some fleets have both. Understand the difference between safety standards, whether it's hazmat, reefer, whatever it is, things they got to go through, tanker endorsed. Know how many drivers they have that, which ones they don't. Know what types of trucks they have. Know if they have. You got a carrier, it's got a standard of 10 years or newer on their trucks. That's it. All Qualcomms, no exceptions. E-logs and stuff. That's. You can vet your carriers. You can get that idea of what freight they fit on and what freight, how reliable they can be when shit starts to hit the fan, because you're hitting maintenance bubble right now. You're hitting a lot of the different issues that are going to affect your capacity. Even though, your connection over there, your guy, your best friends or whatever, it doesn't matter if your trucks aren't running, if you don't have the proper equipment and the availability. So that's one big thing. I think that if people dig in and really, really work to learn that, I think it shows the carrier you care, it shows your customer you care, and it kind of prevents a lot of issues from happening.
Absolutely. I had a carrier come to me, and this was previously. This is not recent or whatever, because again, I don't have freight, but I had this guy. He only
Stop
wanted
lying,
to do these.
Tony.
He only wanted these certain lanes, these certain days. He didn't want anything that wasn't like right in his niche, and yet he wasn't fast, and he was the highest priced guy. And he's like, I make no apologies for my rates. And okay, don't, man. I make no apology for never using you.
That guy just seems a little. I just don't know why. I felt like I just saw that scene from what is it, Wedding Crashers, where he's like, "Oh, get the fuck back up on the altar, Claire." It's like that's what a relationship like that sounds like.
Well, he's a great guy. I want to go fishing with him, but like he's got these trucks so we don't have to do ELDs, and he doesn't want to do anything that's compliant at all, unless it's like his compliance. Just
stick
him.
to
As long as
fishing.
he's compliant. It's cool.
Would you guys fish from the same pond? I know Mike would.
Oh, I'm definitely not fishing from the same pond.
Mike would be over there adding fish to the pond, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right. I gotta get running. What are we? It's already 4:11. We should probably start wrapping up.
7-Eleven.
Or 4:11. 7:11 with you guys.
Yeah, no, I think I think it's something we continue to talk about. Everyone's talk relationships, everyone's talk about this and that, but I just think, like what I said earlier and what I've been preaching, it's just been things are up right now and they're going to go down, and you just don't be a complainer. Don't be the one that's sitting around complaining when they do. Right now is when you really got to start preparing and getting ahead and prepping people. It's a lot easier because the morale's up, right, to train people and do those things now. because the morale is up. But it's just one of those things you got to do. I think it's crazy important right now because Tony's touched on it. I mean, everybody, like when rates are up and you got to get a rate approved and people are already getting murdered, they, with rates, they got to be able to justify it. If you could be that guy that justifies it for them,
right,
you're set up for success.
Will, what are your parting thoughts today on carrier relationships and sourcing?
Yeah, I think the most important piece is spending time asking questions that no one else is asking, so you understand their business better and can provide value to them. When I look at it as a broker, if I'm looking for new carrier partners to run things dedicated or sourcing just to strictly know what carriers like to run, you really have to dig in and go past surface level. So you've got data points you can use later, even if it's not valuable in the moment, and also make sure that in the heat of the madness that we're in right now, you're not missing out on developing those relationships because you just want to get a load covered or you just want to find a way to get that load booked. You have to spend the time to talk and ask the right questions. And same thing as I'm looking to provide solutions to a shipper, I want to make sure that I'm digging in with my carriers to know what they need. So if I provide a solution, it comes back and works flawlessly. So I think a lot of it comes down to the quality of the questions that you're asking and really digging in there, not being surface level.
And if you see carriers the same light you do customers, it's just as important to be talking to the right person too. So you call a dispatcher who doesn't give a shit, and you can ask all the questions you want, right? It's the same thing with a customer. So, I mean, you get an operations manager, the owner, whoever it is on the line, and you're asking those questions to get the answers that to the questions Will's talking about there. I mean, those are important things, and it's got to be the right person at the carrier that can then pass it down the chain to make sure you're solidified.
Yep, I totally agree. I think, like I said, when you start that relationship, manage the expectations by clearly laying them out, clearly defined expectations. I say it over and over, and you're setting the tone with those expectations that it's a long-term relationship, not a transactional relationship. That build your relationship that lasts. Mike,
you guys hit it all.
Yeah.
I just put a tagline up: play chess, not checkers.
I love it.
You got it?
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
YouTube?
Hey, nice. We are. Nice meeting you, Will. I'm out of here, guys.
Yep.
Awesome. Thanks. Welcome, Will.
See you guys.
See you guys.